He was here at the Oxford House in Jackson, Forest Park location, and then he was at the North Hills Meridian. It was back sometime in May of this year, 2015. My loved one was completing rehab and needed to go to a sober living environment. The discharge planner at the facility he was at helped locate the Oxford House, and that's where he decided to go here in Jackson. I called right before my loved one came to the Oxford House to ask some questions, and just got some really casual answers, some things that kind of threw some red flags, you know, as compared to other sober living homes. But then again, I thought, hey, you know, we'll just give it a try and see how it works out. One thing that concerned me was the fact that there is no quote-unquote house manager. He wasn't required to go to detox prior to that, where most sober living homes will not let you come in unless you have been directly through treatment with verification of your, you know, with the paperwork, or detox if you've recently, you know, been under the influence. That was not required at the Oxford House. Nothing was required but the money in hand. Then things kind of turned south.
How so?
Well, my loved one volunteered to go to the Meridian chapter of the Oxford House as it was, you know, being started from the ground up. He did that in an effort to be closer to home, which our home is about 2 hours away from the Meridian area. When he first got there, the first week, he spent alone with only a bed. There was no other furnishings in the home. During that first week, they brought in another resident. It's a young man that is a war veteran. And for the time being, there was only those two members. And some things started to happen. My loved one relapsed. He drank. When I was made aware that he was drinking, I contacted the outreach worker, and they allowed him to go to detox for about 2 or 3 days. As soon as the 2 or 3 days at detox were up, he came back to the Oxford House in Meridian, and it was not quite a week after that is when the second young man had a relapse with some prescription medication that I personally witnessed him abusing. As I've understood, the Mississippi Department of Health is supposed to be making inspections of these homes, you know, once they're set up and stuff. Now, whether they're doing that or not, I have no idea. I know that as of last week, they had not made a trip to Meridian, Mississippi yet.
So would you presume to think that the outreach workers are hiding these relapses?
I know for a fact they are. Here's how I know for a fact. The first time my loved one had a relapse there in Meridian, you know, we were instructed to let him go to detox, and as soon as he completed detox, he could come back to the house. He relapsed again while the second young man was sent to detox, and my loved one was left there alone during this entire time. I contacted the outreach worker myself. I have records of telephone calls and text messages on that, and he just he didn't do anything. This happened on a Friday. This was the second time now. This happened on a Friday, and the outreach worker did not make it to Meridian, Mississippi until late that Saturday evening.
That must have upset you awfully.
It has absolutely devastated me. I mean, it's caused me an unnecessary amount of stress. You know, I work like everyone else does, and it's been really hard to work and try to deal with this and things falling apart, you know, and no one wants to be held accountable for this. Well, I know on the, I believe it was the North Hills house, my loved one was hired to build a temporary wall to make a dining room into a bedroom. The Mississippi Department of Mental Health came by to inspect that right after that happened and noted that there were no closets there or whatever. A sober living house generally will have, you know, if there's any suspicion that someone is under the influence of drugs or alcohol, there is supposed to be someone there to drug test them or to, you know, make them take a urinalysis or what have you. Oxford House claims that they do that, but in our instance, that never happened. they have the right concept, but it's being poorly executed. You know, I hate to compare addicts to toddlers, but humor me if you will. As I asked this outreach worker, you know, when I was questioning the program and how it worked, I said, you know, when you take a person out of inpatient rehab for 28 days, you put 6+ men together in a home, or even women, you know, and you allow them to fend for themselves and hold each other accountable. I said, it's almost like leaving a group of 3-year-old toddlers in a daycare center with no adult supervision. There are certainly some safety issues. The day that I personally witnessed this man eating prescription pills, who was in a comatose state of mind, once they got back to Meridian that evening, this young man goes out to that car and comes back into the house with a loaded gun. The gun did not belong to him, as I understand. It belonged to a friend. But the point is, that is a huge, huge safety concern. You know, I can overlook a person relapsing because that's sometimes inevitable with addictions. But what I cannot overlook, and what no one can give me a straight answer on, is why they permitted that young man to come back to the Oxford house knowing full good and well that he brought a loaded weapon into that house. And I cannot get a straight answer on that. The Oxford house, compared to other places, it needs structure. You know, if these men and women with addiction issues were able to go and live independently and democratically and stuff, they would have no need for the Oxford house or any other type of sober living. But people come to these type of treatment places, you know, looking for some direction on how to pull their lives back together without the addictions of drugs and alcohol. And that's just, it's kind of pretty much, or from what I saw, everybody just pretty much does as they please.
So there's very little oversight by
There's
anybody
no
in
oversight.
authority.
There's no oversight. None. He relapsed 3 times in Meridian. 3 times. And as I was instructed on the 2nd time that he relapsed, excuse me, I contacted the outreach worker to let him know what was going on, and this is exactly what he told me. No one has to know about this. Let's keep this between me, you, and my loved one. We won't make any big deal about it. He doesn't have to go back to detox, but we have to keep it under our hat.
That must have floored you.
Yes, sir, it did. It really did. Because, you know, here again, we've invested time, we've invested money, blood, sweat, tears. My loved one has hauled furniture for the Oxford house all over God's creation. He has done work that he has yet to be paid for. You know, and I mean, it's just really a slap in the face. It's a slap in the face that we, you know, I tried to trust this place to believe that they would, you know, I mean, ultimately I understand that the work has got to be done by by my loved one. But in the same breath, if he could do it on his own, he wouldn't have the need for the sober living place. You know, there's supposed to be some sort of the guidelines of the Oxford House say that, you know, they're to attend a minimum of 3 AA or NA meetings a week. Well, who's there to make sure that they are attending these meetings? No one. They don't have to get a piece of paper signed. In other sober living homes where it is required, when you go to an AA meeting, there's a piece of paper you get signed by someone there. That's not happening here. They all should share the blame in this. Our federal government, one, because they allow it to happen. You know, our state mental health department, because they know what's going on and they know what's not going on, and they still continue to provide this money. I do understand the neighborhood concerns about, you know, there's no background checks done. You don't know if it's a sex offender living there. You know, and to people with small children, yes, I would be insecure about that as well. The thing that bothers me the most is that this seed money that the Mississippi Department of Mental Health is providing to the Oxford House, that money could be better spent in our local communities. There are so many people out here with mental illnesses, so many people with addictions, and the help where you can find it in this state is not always affordable. There are people who are suffering, people who are dying with addiction every single day. And most of it is because the help is not readily available. Why couldn't we take that money and put a more positive spin on it? There should be someone on a staff 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, who is stable in their sobriety to be a positive role model for those who are still weak in their recoveries. That is absolutely crucial to anyone trying to obtain sobriety.
And that's not happening right now.
That absolutely is not happening at the Oxford House. They'll take a man or a woman who's fresh out of rehab 28 days later, because that at the time is the maximum time that you can receive inpatient treatment for drug and alcohol addiction. They take these men and women, they put them in there, and you know, you get 6 or more people in there. Well, guess what? You got your own democracy. You know, you just came out of rehab. Okay, you're doing well, it sounds like, so we're going to make you the president of this house. And, you know, then the next person, you know, you're going to be the treasurer and stuff, you know. And that's something else that kind of puzzles me, too, is how the finances are done per each house. These residents are charged $125 a week rent that has to be paid in a money order. And the money's deposited, you know, to pay their, you know, monthly expenses, utilities and whatnot. And of course they have to provide their own food and stuff. Well, on this checking account, you know, whoever they decide is the president of the house, their name has to be on that checking account as an authorized signer. According to the bylaws of the Oxford House, each check requires 2 signatures. Okay? Well, I'm going to use the Meridian House, for example. Neither my loved one nor the other young man who was there, their names were never put on the checking account. And even if they had been, considering how things turned out, why would you turn finances over to someone who's 28 days out of rehab? I mean, come on now. On this particular house, all he built was a temporary wall. I mean, it was attached, you know, to a wall. But it was to where that, you know, once their lease is up, if they do not renew their lease, it can easily be pulled away, you know, and the spot on the wall mudded and sanded and painted. But initially, I do know this, according to the application that was available online for that particular house, it was stated that it was a 5-bedroom house, when in fact, no sir, it was not at the time of that application. That's a fact. Hey,
Well,
it's a great scheme. It's a great scheme. You know, we can sit here and argue all day about what they could do differently and stuff, but at the end of the day, they got it figured out. And thus far, it's been solid, and you can't touch them.
So it's a federal government program that means well, but it's got a lot of
Means
holes in it.
well, but that's the best way to put it. I really regret that I didn't dig a little deeper months ago to know more about this house, but at the same token, I firmly believe that God led us here for a reason. That's why I'm here today. And if I can only change the life of one person with our testimony, I don't want another family that's in the despair that we've been in, you know, to look at the place as the Oxford House runs now and think that their solution, that their loved one's solution lies there, because I can tell you it's not there. It's been a lot of heartache, a lot of grief, a lot of stress on me. But you know, it's just been really tough, you know, and it just really infuriates me that the Oxford House is so nonchalant about how things are done there, and it's just the sheer arrogance. And you know, they go and they're allowed to do the things that they're doing, and they're protected by laws. Well, what about our rights? What about the rights of the family? What about the rights of the addict? Where are their rights? These people can sit here and profit millions of dollars at our expense every year, and no one can hold them accountable. There's something really wrong with that, and that needs to change.